Hello and welcome. We're going to go right back to the beginning of this new millennium and talk about Atlantis the Lost Empire. Atlantis the Lost Empire, was released in 2001. So it was around the same time as we had with Tarzan and Treasure Planet, and a lot of these had that similar story where it took place in London, or it had the steampunk elements of it, which I really enjoy, and it had the whole futuristic vibe to it because we were heading into the 21st century, so it was all about the future, but mixing history with the future.
It's science.
We have our hero, Milo Thatch, who was voiced by Michael J. Fox. Besides Michael James Fox, we had some really fantastic and well-known actors in this film. James Garner was the voice, and Leonard Nimoy, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but I know that he was Spock from Star Trek, so that was cool. I didn't realize that he was a voice in that. And I'm not a Star Trek fan, but I am familiar, and BB Up Scotty and all that jazz. So that's awesome. That's really cool that they had that. They're still like really great voice actors that did this film. It is also yet another forgotten film. I think this also can tie into back with Tarzan and Hercules and Pocahontas and a lot of the late 90s, early 2000 films that did not do well, but are so fantastic. And I really enjoyed Atlantis. There are elements of it that are similar to Treasure Planet, but like I said, I know I got hate for it, which is understandable because I understand that people are a really big fan of Treasure Planet, and that's cool. That's awesome. I just wasn't a fan of the story of it, but that's my opinion. I like the story better. I think it was more well done, but it could be very similar to each other, especially with the steampunk elements that we have in Atlantis, which I was also familiar with Treasure Planet. But there are two different stories. I just enjoy Atlantis a lot better than I did, but I appreciate Treasure Planet, so we're gonna move on from that. This is a straight up adventure. We have a crew of extremely strong personalities. I really appreciate that especially a lot of really strong feminine personalities. There's Helga Sinclair, who is an amazing femme fatale archetype.
Milo James Thatch. Who are you? How did you get in here? I came down the chimney. Ho, ho, ho. My name is Helga Sinclair. I'm acting on behalf of my employer, who has a most intriguing proposition for you. Are you interested? Your employer? Who is your employer?
The only issue is that this film is supposed to take place in 1914, right at the turn of the 20th century, and femme fatales weren't really known until the 30s and 40s. So that's the only issue where I have with historical reference. And I know I'm overthinking this because this movie is still very historically inaccurate, just like most Disney films are. But everyone knows at this point how very dedicated I am to pin up some femme fatale characters, and I love the entire aesthetic of the 40s. So that's important to me, and I wanted to point that out. But otherwise, the characters are awesome.
Best of the best. Gaetan Moliere, Geology and Excavation. Audrey Ramirez, don't let her age fool you.
The name's Sweet, Joshua Sweet, medical officer.
Vincenzo Santorini, Demolitions.
Hey look, I made a bridge.
Audrey's amazing as well, and I really appreciate it. And it is very similar to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which we're going to be talking about later in the summertime. But you have a crew that is going for an exhibition. You find out later that they're in it for something that wasn't what they signed up for, And Milo is the only good guy that doesn't care about any money, where the rest of them are just looking for treasure, and he just wants to find a civilization. They find an entire civilization of Atlantis, and everyone's alive compared to just finding the lost dead remains of what happened. And the battle is that they have to figure out what side they're going to take, as well as you have your love story between Kita and Milo, who I really appreciate too, that they don't click right away. They're friends. They click as friends and you have a connection, but they don't kiss in the movie at all. At the end, after the risk, they just hug each other and they're pleased, and he goes to stay with them to help them learn about their culture because it was lost, but their relationship is extremely natural, and I feel like it's very underrated as well, the relationship between Milo and Kita, because every other Disney film, even if they know each other for a couple of days, they automatically just fall in love with each other, and you have that kiss to conceal that. This doesn't have that, and I really admire and appreciate it.
Milo.
I also really appreciate Kita as a princess. She is a princess, and she may be the most unknown, underrated princess in the Disney universe. So I would love to see more credit to her, and I also would love to be able to do a cosplay of her in the near future as well. And I also really admire that they talk about crystals, that crystals are the life source to them, and they are such an important part of the story, because that's just something I got into in the last couple of years. I really admire crystals. I love the whole aesthetic of it, but also that they do have healing powers, and it's cool to see a mainstream film use that as a major part of the story. It didn't do well in the box office. It did decent, I'm sure, but overall it is a forgotten film, and I would love to see more of it. And honestly, I wish they did Atlantis in Animal Kingdom, because their land is very exotic as well, instead of Pandora. But we're gonna talk more about that when we talk about Avatar, because otherwise I could rant on for a long time. So I'm gonna save that, and we're gonna come back to that when we are actually watching Avatar. Tomorrow we're gonna be talking about a film that is actually really well known again, Lilo and Stitch. So you can stay tuned, and as always, I hope you have a magical day, and I will see you real soon.